Well, it's missed a couple things. I'm okay. But when someone's saying I don't like scripts, I never said that to anybody. That's what someone told her when they didn't give me one. And then I'm just editing the things that, it doesn't even have the things I normally say in it. It's fine. It's a good crutch for me just because I'm tired. Don't be, it's okay. I thought so, just in case there are press or people here. On the other hand, well, why don't I ask I'm inclined not to keep going just because the schedule's tight. But thank you for preparing it. I'd love to see it. Good morning. Thank you. We'll get started. Nice to see so many of you. Where is that, Tam? She's here. I know she's here somewhere. My name is Felicia Marcus, Chair of the State Water Board. I think since we are doing something unusual today in holding this open workshop on the drought and drought recommendations on things other than what we talked about at the earlier workshops on both our water rights and our standards implementation authorities. We have asked some of our fellow agencies at the federal and state level to come join us to hear from all of you. And so I'm going to ask folks to introduce themselves going down the panel. I have your names on a list, but you can speak for yourselves. So why don't we start at the right end?
You have to push the button on the microphone. It'll turn green. Okay.
And
you hear me now?
Great. And my suggestion is I'm trying to collapse things because if you have a few things to say and welcome, that would be terrific, and we'll just do that.
Okay.
Now, rather than going twice.
I'm Diana Brooks. I'm the Chief of the Water Use and Efficiency Branch at the Department of Water Resources. We're very interested to hear from all of you on your thoughts about how we can better support you in responding to this historic drought. We've mobilized internally. We have a drought response team. We're doing things on many fronts, including drought workshops for water suppliers, support for agricultural interests in terms of drought tips and drought workshops, crop-specific things. We're putting a strong emphasis on the reduction of outdoor water use and working with our regional integrated water management groups. And we look forward to hearing from you and continuing the conversation after this hearing. And we'll thank the State Board for including us on the panel.
Thank you so much for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Carlos Suarez. I'm the state conservationist for USDA NRCS in California, and very honored to be here in the panel today as well. As it relates to the drought, we have been working very diligently with farmers and ranchers and providing technical and financial assistance to address the drought. Many of you may know that in recent weeks, President Obama, as well as Secretary Tom Vilsack, made an announcement for multi-million-dollar financial assistance to farmers and ranchers, of which 30 million went to NRCS to provide financial assistance to farmers and ranchers that are being affected by the drought, focalizing on those that won't be able to grow a crop this year, as well as those that still have some water and want to improve their irrigation systems, develop troughs or water tanks for animals, and as well as put in conservation practices, cover crops, residue management, etc., to protect the soil. But we're not doing this alone. We're very pleased and happy to work with our partners at the state level with with the CDFA, and Secretary Ross is here, and we have been working diligently in partnerships to address this, as well as our federal partners, Bureau of Reclamation, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, EPA, Army Corps of Engineers, and others, to help farmers and ranchers and the people in general to address this. So looking forward to the panelists, what they have to say, and looking forward to continue working in coordination and partnership. Thanks.
Thank you. Great to have you.
Great. Thank you. My name is Stephen Moore. I'm a member here of the State Water Resources Control Board. I wanted to welcome the folks up here to the panel, and it's a great opportunity for us to share the different agencies' perspective on this historic drought. And just wanted to welcome everyone out there in the web land, as well as folks that have come to give us their wisdom on this issue. And we're real interested in hearing what you think the State Water Board and the regional water boards should be doing to help manage the drought. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Fran Spivey-Weber, also on the State Water Board, Vice Chair, and I'm all ears.
Dee Diodamo, member of the State Water Board. Just really looking forward to what you all have to say, and really want to encourage people to come up during public comment, even if you're not on a panel. I know I speak for all of us. It doesn't end with today. Please contact me as an individual if there's anything in particular that you think that I can do. I do want to just mention that I'm the ag member, and that doesn't just mean for farmers, farm workers, ag-related impacts. So anyone that wants to have separate discussions and anything that I can do on those issues, I'm happy to help.
Good morning, Karen Ross, Secretary of the California Department of Food and Agriculture, and I want to thank the chair and members of the board for having us here today. I'm especially interested in hearing specific recommendations of how we can use the limited resources that we have to really leverage and maximize investments that have already been made by USDA. I know that there are on-farm ranching conservation practices, investment in equipment, but it's not just the equipment itself. It's the soil sensor technology. It's the other kinds of technologies that perhaps we could really leverage to get the best bang for the buck, so to speak. So I'm really looking forward to your recommendations today. Thank you.
My name is Mark Bartson. I'm a supervising engineer with the Department of Public Health, the Drinking Water Program. And our role, our agency, we regulate the approximately 7,000 public water systems statewide. We do that with 23 district offices with a staff in each office and about 31 local primacy agencies. Those are the county health departments in 31 counties that regulate the small water systems under 200 service connections. Even in the best of years, there's quite a few systems that have problems, so we're familiar with those ones. And at this point, we're in the process of gathering information, helping water systems identify alternative water supplies that may have quality problems we'll have to deal with, and adjusting our funding programs to deal with all of that and provide funding to bring sources online. We also have a role in conjunction with the regional board with the regulation of recycled water. And our activities in that area are mainly reviewing and verifying compliance with Title 22 requirements for the various uses. But we also have our groundwater recharge regulations that are in a final draft form. So groundwater recharge is a big piece of the puzzle longer term. And we're working towards indirect potable reuse and looking at the feasibility of direct potable reuse, kind of longer term initiatives. So I'm interested in anything related to the public water systems and the drought. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. I think one of the hallmarks so far of the drought response within the administration, even preceding the drought response, has been an unprecedented level of cooperation across agencies, personally and professionally, to just figure out together how we can move forward on a lot of issues, including water issues, in a coherent and effective way for the future. And the same is true of our relationships with federal agency partners, where we are spending a lot of time both on the fish agency side and the operations side, and with USDA and our colleagues, which has been really nice. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to just hear things at the same time with us, knowing that you also are having forums that that we've been invited to, and I had the pleasure of sitting with the CDFA board for the first joint drought task force meeting, and I do really appreciate it. I think even, DWR, you're having meetings right today, actually, aren't you? Other folks in DWR are meeting, so people are trying to cover, but I'll just tell you that we're all talking all the time, and we'll be taking in those suggestions wherever they come and just trying to figure out how we can collaboratively make the biggest difference we can in such a catastrophic situation. And so far, I've been really impressed with people rising above historic divides, both in government and certainly out in the public. So my thanks, because this is the kind of crisis where we have to collaborate our way out of it rather than fight with each other. And so far, I think people have been terrific, and it'll keep going. So now I'm going to do the basics for those of you who know us. Very important, look around, look for the exit signs nearest you. If you hear an emergency sound, go to an exit. Most of the people will go out into Cesar Chavez Park, which is where this building meets. I suggest you go there because any all clear, you'll know you can come back here from there, but obviously you can go anywhere you want. If you go to Starbucks, I'll take a triple espresso macchiato because I didn't have mine this morning. And I don't get to go there because I have to go to the park. Then here's what we'll be doing. We're going to have a series of panels I'm going to go through. We're going to have a relatively short compressed timeline on this. A lot will depend when we get to the public comment about how many blue cards we get. Here's what's going to happen. We're basically going to limit folks to 5 minutes. That includes panelists, and panelists should be aware of that. We may go longer if we ask you questions. That doesn't bite into your time, but generally the points that you want to make most saliently can be made in a 5-minute summary, and we're always happy to take written expansion on that. Some people have asked us for more time to do some presentations even within the public comment, and that's obviously always fine. We try to accommodate that. A lot of it, again, just depends on how many cards I get. I know this is the kind of hearing workshop where a lot of people will be listening, not just on the web on a rainy day, but also in the room. So I won't know that till I get the cards. So when you fill out a blue card, the blue cards are a little different than they used to be. It's kind of cool. They have all these little lines on the back, so you can actually write stuff to us if you prefer. Some people prefer that to speaking at a microphone, and we take it just as seriously. We'll all see everything that's on the card. Also, please put down how much time you would like, so I have a chance to see if someone wants more time than the 5 minutes, and I can assess whether or not we actually have the time to accommodate that. I will certainly try to do that. We're not particularly harsh about it. We would really like the panelists, if possible, to stay into the afternoon so that we can ask them questions based on some of the things we hear from the public. I know people have busy schedules, but if you could stay, that would be terrific. I know some of you have brought colleagues, so you can designate colleagues if you have to leave. Let me see. Oh, and also on your card, please identify the subject area that you want to talk about so we can sort them. And importantly, this is one where do as I say, not as I do. For the microphones to work, you need to press the button and see the little green light. The closer you are to it, the better it works. So please, it's an awkward thing to do unless, like Steve, you've been in a rock band and you are familiar with this sort of thing. But please try to, it's really awkward, I'm really bad at it. But try to do it, the panelists and the public, and usually someone tugs on my sleeve when I don't do it. So that's important. Also, please state your name for the record before you speak. Now here's the agenda, and then we'll get on with it. Oh, and turn off your phones. Turn off your phone. Or more specifically, turn off the sound on your phones. Thank you. Thank you, Fran. This is a team sport. For the agenda, it's sort of gone back and forth. We've already done the opening remarks. We'll start with Julie Rosardo giving a bit of a summary of what the State Board has been doing. We're trying, as you can tell from the opening comments, each of these agencies could talk for 30 minutes or more about all the things they're doing. So we'll just give you some highlights on that, just so you have a sense of the issues we're working on. Then we'll have a variety of panels, an agricultural water measure panel, a small community rural water measures panel, an urban water measures panel, and then we'll go to public questions and comments. We will be taking some sort of a a mid-morning bio break, somewhere between 10 and 10:30, as courtesy always dictates. And then we will take a lunch break. Probably won't be a whole hour. It'll be a half hour to 45 minutes. I'm inclined to make it 45 minutes only because it's raining outside. The cafe is actually quite good, but it's quite small, so you might have to wait in line for a while. And we'll do that somewhere. We won't stop right at 12 necessarily, and we might stop closer to 1. It just all depends on where the panels are going. We can time this as best we might, but we're going to have questions, and so everything's going to take longer than on the agenda, but hopefully it will be of value to you all. So I think with that, I'm going to turn to Julie to get going. Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it.
Julie Rosardo, Division of Financial Assistance. I'm up here with my colleague Leslie Loudon. And in the back of the room, we have a handout that is additional water board actions in response to the drought. There's quite a bit of detail on here as far as what we're doing for water recycling and also for other bond programs. But just to give you the big highlights, one of the things we're working on is the statewide waste discharge requirement for recycled water. And we're also putting a lot of information online for our water recycling funding program. And so that went online within the last month or two. We also are planning to revamp our water recycling webpage with some new search engine features where folks will be able to easily see if they're eligible applicants, if they have eligible projects, and quickly point them to the correct contact and application online. As well, we are planning to come to the board at a future board meeting to discuss incentives for recycled water projects. We have been working very closely with the recycled water industry to do a survey of the needs out there. So keep an eye on that, and we're really looking at those projects which are ready for construction in the near term. For our grant programs, we're doing a lot of different activities, but one of the things that the Drought Proclamation specified in number 6 was that we would accelerate funding and that we would also repurpose funds to the extent we could. So we are working with the Department of Water Resources to accelerate the integrated regional water management funding. So we've worked with them before, but we're working on an accelerated time schedule to review and solicit and award proposals. As well, we are looking at remaining bond funds and how we can repurpose those. And so just stay tuned. If you want more information, like I said, this fact sheet is in the back. And there also, pay attention to the footnotes. That indicates if it's an activity that we're doing as part of our regular program. It indicates if it's a specific activity under the Drought Task Force. And that's all I have.
That's great. Thank you. And thanks to staff across the board for all the great work and rising to the occasion. It's really been terrific. I'm looking forward to the recycled water program. The other thing we were going to do, which was something that I had asked for at our last workshops, we had a 2-day workshop last week to deal with our water rights and our water quality standards implementation actions on this, was for a summary of those to come before the board today at this one. In looking at this very packed agenda, which is fairly focused on the other aspects of what we can do, I've suggested to Ms. Turgovich that we don't do that today. Is there anybody who's brokenhearted by that in the audience? Because we can do the summary of all 3 days of workshops at the next board meeting next Tuesday. All right, then we're going to dispense with that and thank her for all the work she did to prepare for it this morning. So I owe you the cappuccino or the espresso, right? All right, at the break, I think I'm going out in the rain, aren't I? Okay, that's what we'll do. So with no further ado, we're going to turn to the Agricultural Water Measures Panel. I want to thank all of you for being here. You all have very extensive and impressive expertise in this arena, and I really appreciate you coming, particularly you, Ms. Bella, on short notice. I really do appreciate it since I asked for that. So, great, thanks. Take it away. Now, the panel's going to get 15 minutes. That means you each have 5 minutes. That means we're using peer pressure, unless you'd rather we do you individually. And the order we have is Tim and then Claire and then Kelly. So since you know I asked Kelly to come specifically to hear from it, there's peer pressure and personal pressure, so please try and keep in your 5 minutes so that we can keep moving. You all have a lot to say. I've heard or read things that you all have done, but please, I've been looking forward to this panel, so take it away, Tim.
Okay.
Please, again, reintroduce yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Marcus and members of the board and other members of the panel. Thank you for inviting me to come to speak at this public workshop. My name is Tim O'Halloran, and I'm the General Manager of the Yolo County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. In the interest of keeping it below the 7 minutes that we're told, I'll cut a few things out here as we go along.
Oh, no, wait. We said 5 to 7, didn't we? We did. All right.
But I thought that was pretty clever for you to say 5.
Okay, the clock's ticking. We are a relatively small water district and not part of the Central Valley Project or the State Water Project, so we bring a different perspective to the table. However, with every water district in the state, we have our own unique set of circumstances, challenges, and opportunities. I do not appear before you today representing every agricultural water district in the state, and I certainly don't speak for all of irrigated agriculture. I do, however, hope to provide you a snapshot of how our district plans for and manages itself through a drought situation such as we're experiencing this year, and to offer you some thoughts on actions you might take in response to the drought.
All right, I'm going to be lenient at the end because you made that point, just so you know, but don't take advantage of me.
You shouldn't have told me.
I know, but you're talking even as faster than I do, so I want you to
First,
be able
for
to take a breath.
context, a little bit about the district. The Yolo County Flood Control is located northwest of Sacramento. Our surface water supply is Clear Lake and Indian Valley Reservoir, both of which are located in the Coast Range of Lake County. Our water delivery service area is located 60 miles downstream in Yolo County. On the graphic before you, you can see the location of the reservoir systems relative to the irrigated area that's shown in green. What you don't see, however, is underlying the green area is the region's largest water storage facility, the groundwater aquifer. As I've described in previous board workshops, the district is a conjunctive water use district. While we do not have district-owned and operated groundwater wells, we do monitor and manage the groundwater basin extensively. By district policy, we do not concrete line our earthen ditches, though our inline canal system, through our inline canal system, we recharge on an average year basis roughly 25% of our water delivered surface water. Groundwater provides our drought protection, and we take it seriously. So just briefly, what is our water supply situation this year? Both Clear Lake and Indian Valley Reservoir are below the level we are allowed to release water for irrigation purposes. In other words, we have exactly 0 water available for irrigation releases this year. As a matter of fact, we have developed a new definition of drought based on this year's experience. The picture of the desiccated trees before you comes from Indian Valley Reservoir. About a month ago, we received a call from CAL FIRE telling us our reservoir was on fire. And we said, what do you mean the reservoir? You mean the hillside and beyond it? And they said, no, the reservoir. And we thought about it for a minute, and we realized that the water levels were so low that the trees that were left when the dam was constructed 40 years ago were exposed, and local vandals were out there lighting them on fire. So in any case, you know it's a drought. A manager knows it's a drought when CAL FIRE calls to tell him his reservoir is on fire. The subject of this morning's workshop is what action should the Water Board be taking in response to the drought. I'm sure I don't need to describe the drought itself or the severe water shortages that it's created. North and south, east and west, the whole state is scrambling to respond in the most appropriate way to specific local circumstances. I also don't need to recite to you the statistics on what irrigated agriculture has done over the last number of years to improve its water use efficiency. Irrigation practices have improved dramatically. Billions of dollars have been invested in irrigation system improvements, both on farm and at the district level. And crop production per unit of water, crop per drop, continues to increase. However, everyone agrees that more improvements can and will and should be done. Drawing from my district's circumstances, I offer 2 suggestions as to what actions the Water Board can be taking in response to the drought. Neither suggestion is earth-shattering or particularly unique, nor do they cover the range of experiences and hardships that are being felt across the irrigated agriculture sector. However, they are both in line with integrated regional water management planning principles and are consistent with views that I've heard articulated both by this board and by the Governor's California Water Action Plan. I'm not going to talk about expediting water transfers or sites reservoir or anything like that. I just wanted to pick a couple examples that were specific to my district, but I think are representative of what other irrigation districts throughout the state are doing or can do. The first suggestion is that of continued and enhanced partnership building between state agencies and local districts. I have previously mentioned that my district has zero water supply for this irrigation season. What we also have, and just as critical as zero water, is an 80% reduction in revenue. 80% reduction in revenue. Back in January, I appeared in this room before this board at your groundwater framework concept paper workshop. At that presentation, I described how my district and some of its regional partners had, through the IRWMP process, developed a robust program of what we call foundational actions. These ongoing actions, such as groundwater monitoring, modeling, subsidence measuring, and so forth, provide the basic information that our region and state needs to make informed water resource planning and implementation decisions. In particular, I highlighted our innovative groundwater monitoring program and the reporting website. With an 80% reduction in revenue facing us this year due to the drought, the cutback or elimination of these foundational programs is inevitable without some financial assistance. If this water resource information is as critical as everyone seems to agree it is to future planning and policy making, then as our partner, please help us find the financial help in the governor's drought package or elsewhere to maintain their existence and momentum. Again, I highlight this because it's it's something that gets overlooked. The existing baseline programs need help when you're laying people off and you have 80% reduction in revenue. The second example I offer is that of accelerating the implementation of a water use efficiency grant. Last year, the district was fortunate enough to receive a $1.3 million water use efficiency grant to allow us to modernize 60 miles of the district's main canal system with automatic water control gates. And I'm glad the USDA is here, and all the money that is being spent on farm is, you have to recognize that the irrigation districts are part of the on-farm system, and putting new highly technical on-farm systems in place without improving the distribution system is akin to putting new tires on an old car. And so it's something that I haven't seen addressed very much within the governor's drought package. Anyway, with no water, the implementation timeline for this grant is three years. However, with no water to deliver this season, it would be to everyone's advantage to accelerate the implementation time frame to 1 year. This 1 year time frame will allow us to keep our staff employed while providing water efficiency improvements 2 years earlier than scheduled. The problem is that we can't afford the cost share outlay in this year when we're having an 80% reduction in revenue. Additional state funding to cover or delay our cost share component of this project would be to everyone's gain, and we could then implement this project on an expedited basis. On a more regional basis, the district, together with other Sacramento Valley water resource managers and the Northern California Water Association, continues to work on regional economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Since 2011, we've been working together as a region to develop reports on efficient water management practices in the Sacramento Valley, potential solutions for anadromous fish restoration in the Sacramento River Basin, and drought preparation. We're currently working on a new report defining groundwater conditions and management in the Sacramento Valley. This new groundwater work will help us provide to you, the state board and staff, with thoughtful and technical input into the important discussions that you have initiated with your groundwater work plan concept paper. I highlight these regional sustainability efforts because even though this is a year of severe drought this year, every year is a year of regional sustainability efforts. While we must all deal with and respond to the crisis at hand, we should continually remind ourselves not to lose sight of the overall goal of regional sustainability. It's a long-term game. In conclusion, much like the governor stated that he can't make it rain, I don't expect the state board to magically bring us water in a drought. We do, however, very much appreciate and encourage you and your staff to continue to engage with us in the Sacramento Valley and across the state in the open and meaningful way that you have been doing. In the spirit of subsidiarity, encourage local leadership when and where appropriate, and help us develop mutually agreeable sustainability criteria with which to measure our success. Working together as true partners while adhering to good water resource planning principles, we can accomplish much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim.
6 minutes.
Not right, not quite, but it was very good. So we'll move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Claire O'Connor, and I'm an attorney with the Natural Resources Defense Council. I want to say thank you to everyone that's in the room today. You're all here because you're focused on not only finding relief from this current drought, but to create more resilient farms for the future. And I feel very privileged to be a part of that discussion. My grandfather, Art, is 82 years old. He's been farming pretty much since the day he was born. He's supposedly retired now, but every day during planting and harvest season, he's out in the field with my dad on our corn and soybean farm in Nebraska. So when
It's always Nebraska, you know. You corn huskers.
When you farm for more than 80 years, you see a lot. When Art was just a little boy, he watched his family's crops wither up, die, and blow off into the Dust Bowl. Although the drought during the Great Depression was the most infamous dry period that we've experienced in our country's history, it wasn't the last lean time for Art and the rest of my family. The 1950s, the 1980s, and most recently 2012 each tested my family's dedication to farming and probably their sanity. Like my family, California farmers are all too familiar with drought. California's farmers are on the front lines when the skies seal up, and they're important partners in the path toward resiliency. 5 years ago, the Water Conservation Act asked our farmers to lead us down that path. The act asked large irrigation districts to plan for their future water needs, to measure deliveries to their customers, and to charge their customers based on the volume of water delivered. Last summer, NRDC partnered with the Pacific Institute to interview districts about how those changes were being implemented. That effort turned out to be a little more challenging than we anticipated. At the time, just 30% of districts had turned in a plan, even though at that point plans were 6 months overdue. Even now, just 38% of districts have completed their management plans. If we're serious about improving agricultural water management in California, we must do better. And we can do better. Right now, eligibility for state grants and loans is the main compliance mechanism for ag districts to participate in the Water Conservation Act's resiliency programs. Yet the Department of Water Resources awarded nearly $5 million to planless districts last summer. This severely weakens the incentives that districts have to complete their plans. Instead, state agencies should reward the districts that take the time to consider their water future by putting them at the front of the line for funding. As a state, we also need to invest in modern water delivery systems, as Tim alluded to. According to the USDA, over half of the acres in California still use gravity-based systems to irrigate their crops. In other heavily irrigated ag-centric states, such as Nebraska and Texas, fewer than 20% of acres use gravity irrigation. In Kansas, it's just 7% of acres that rely on gravity to irrigate their crops. So why is California, the tech capital of the world, lagging so far behind? Part of the reason, as Tim alluded to, is that although on-farm irrigation technology has significantly advanced in recent years, our delivery systems haven't been able to keep pace. These aging systems can't deliver the low-volume water that farmers with efficient systems need. And it's not only holding farmers back, it's also hurting irrigation districts. When NRDC and the Pacific Institute talked to districts last summer for our report, several districts mentioned the challenge of losing customers to groundwater because they weren't able to provide water in a way that worked with modern irrigation technologies. Modernizing our water delivery systems will also allow farmers to schedule their irrigation for when crops most need their water. Right now, 4,700 California farms still receive their water on a rotational basis, not based on when crops actually need the water. That's more than any other state in the nation, and it's a huge missed opportunity. Irrigation scheduling reduced water by about 30% without impacting yield in a University of Nebraska demonstration project. And a Driscoll's berry supplier, Ryder Berry Farms, was also able to reduce water by about 30% right here in California by scheduling irrigation based on soil moisture readings. By 2025, 100% of our delivery systems should support low-volume irrigation and irrigation scheduling. That's an ambitious goal, and the state should work with districts offering cost shares and low-interest financing to meet it. Modernizing our delivery systems will undoubtedly take time and significant investments by the state. But even farmers who don't have access to modern delivery systems right away do have an important tool for drought resilience right beneath their boots, their soil. Soil conservation is about the oldest drought resilience trick in the book. As the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service points out, healthy soil holds more water, making farms more resilient to dry periods. Each 1% increase in soil organic matter can hold an additional 20,000 gallons of water. You might call that a dry day fund. Soil conservation is relatively inexpensive, yet a high reward investment that we can make as a state. Immediate drought relief efforts should be directed toward soil conservation. Cover cropping, residue management, and conservation tillage are examples of soil building practices that the state can encourage with drought relief funds. Farming ain't easy, but the farmers we have here in California are tough. Despite the challenges they face, California's farmers still manage to produce half of the fruits and vegetables we eat in this country, and they've doubled the revenue generated per acre-foot of water over the last 4 decades. Although we don't know how long this current drought will last, we can be pretty sure it's not the last dry period our farmers will face. Droughts will never be fun, but by utilizing the tools in the Water Conservation Act, modernizing our water delivery systems, and investing in our soils, we can take steps to make the next dry period a little less painful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have questions for all of you when we're done. Can you reset the timer now to 7? So
Thank you.
please, thank you. I hope you weren't too nervous during that last 15 minutes.
A little bit.
No, but I wanted to hear what you had to say.
No,
so.
I just want to take 5 seconds to say that was really nice job. Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Kelly Bell. I'm with Driscoll's, and Driscoll's is a multi-generational company, family-owned, born in Watsonville, California, and we focus on 4 berries, fresh. That's all we do. And we have an independent grower model, which means all of our growers are local independent farmers that collaborate with us to get fruit to the field. We have proprietary varieties that we have created to get the most out of the field. And for those of you that have eaten them, they taste really good. I oversee the social and environmental impacts for Driscoll's, and I've been there for 9 years. And Miles, our owner, asked me to be here today. So water is complicated, it's emotional. I don't have to tell any of you all that, but I've been working on it for about 4 years now. Water is a big topic, and we've done a lot inside the company. I won't allude to a lot of that this morning. I'm going to focus on our community-driven efforts because I think that's really what's relatable to the questions that you've asked. But of course, internally, we're doing everything we can to, as you alluded to, employ best practices and be efficient and innovate. So, do I have the clicker? Thank you. Okay, you see here some tours. I won't go into that. And I just went dark. There we go. All right, here we go. Pajaro Valley, as I said, is where our company's home is. It's very near and dear to our hearts. And it is a basin that is in critical overdraft and has been for generations since the 60s. It's in overdraft of approximately 12,000 acre feet. It is an $800 million agricultural industry that covers 2 counties, Santa Cruz and Monterey. There we farm high-value, resource-intensive crops, and we get a lot out of the ground. It's both veggie row crops and berries, primarily berries. And you see the impact, primary impact of the overdraft has been salinity at the coast, which is escalating at about 100 to 250 feet a year. For quite a long time, the conversation in the valley has been quite volatile. And so about 4 years when we started to enter into the sustainability realm as a company, we decided we're just going to focus on water in the Pajaro Valley and try to help the community shift the conversation to one of solution-based. And so it's unique in the fact that there is no importation pipeline, so we have to solve it for ourselves. And that kind of commitment was kind of galvanizing for the community. Sorry. So recognizing that each location, each community, each basin is very unique. Local solutions are critical. So this is a theme that you'll hear me say a few times today. The commitments that we agreed upon as a community was to protect agriculture as the primary lifeline for the community, recognition that there will be no importation pipeline, we need to solve it for ourselves, and a willingness to pursue diverse strategies, both from the supply and demand side, comprehensively, that will entail costs and sacrifices, and we all need to be ready to take on those costs and sacrifices. And remember, in this valley, growers primarily don't own the land they farm, so it adds a complication to what we're trying to do. Growers tend to rotate their land, and multiple crops can be farmed on one plot of land. So you have quite a lot of stakeholders involved. So I'm not going to go into this in detail because we're short on time. We've accomplished a lot in the 3+ years that we've been at this as a community. Driscoll's has played a role in creating the community dialogue and helping to lead it, but right now I'm excited to say that it's being led by farmers and nurserymen who are at the forefront of this effort. But there's the biggest win that I think we've had is the very diverse stakeholder participation, which includes lots of support from NRCS and RCD on the ground, as well as at the state level, and sustainable conservation as well. Also, PVWMA has become quite a fantastic partner. We collaborate quite a bit. You see one of the successes we've had here is to participate in the creation of the Basin Management Plan revision. And so we subscribe to that, we support it, we helped create it as a community voice, and we are striving toward the conservation targets that were created within that. We're all about driving to action, and so we're community driven, focusing on our action teams that we've created around land management, irrigation best practices, managed aquifer recharge, which I've heard several people mention, big projects, so providing a voice into big projects that are in process, like College Lake, for those of you who are familiar with that area, or the Basin Management Plan revision. And we have a guidance team that's very diverse that supports all of these processes. RCD acts as our fiscal sponsor, so we can access grant funding, and they also provide staff and project administration. The two main projects I want to discuss are the wireless irrigation network, which will speak to a lot of, and also was called out by Claire, so thank you for that lead-in. Wireless irrigation network, you see that's a very funky looking map there, but that's the valley, and it's really fully networked right now. I know it sounds very sci-fi, a little bit out there, but what we did was there's this fantastic remote technology available where you can use tensiometers in the ground to measure soil tension to help you make decisions about irrigating, and you can access the information through the network, so growers can make decisions remotely about how they need to water, and those growers that have participated in this program have saved up to 30% water use, so it's quite dramatic. We have right now 35 growers in this program, and the numbers keep growing. We also have a loaner program that we've created to try to entice those that are on the fence, and that's working quite well as well. These kinds of programs take funding. They take coordination, they take multi-stakeholder organization. So these are the types of things on the ground that are possible and that can make a big difference and motivate. The managed aquifer recharge is another example where we've done private recharge projects on land, which again takes quite a bit of coordination with landowners, growers. It takes taking land out of production in order to do so and do it well. But we have a great success under our belt. We just need a little rain. And we have a whole suite of other MAR projects in the wings that are in process. Let's see. Okay, PICA, I won't go into detail, but just know this is another project. We've created a system that we're piloting with growers on the ground to measure to manage. And this is both to demonstrate their environmental performance, but also to provide them a system to do data collection and monitor their water use and nitrogen movement to drive progress, but measure themselves against their peers. So we aggregate the information, and it can be quite powerful for those involved. We've seen it work well, and this is not a unique system. There are other industry-driven programs like this, but I want to emphasize that growers want this data, they're hungry for it, and they want to manage it for themselves. So creating system structure and support to help them do that can be quite effective. Just a shot of our tours. Chief Jason Weller came to visit us, and he said, you know, you all seem to have found the secret sauce. And so I just wanted to briefly say, for me, the secret sauce is community participation and collaboration, which has already been mentioned, individual accountability, but consensus building, science-based expertise and technical expertise, public and private partnership with industry and farmer leadership. They have to be at the table, engage early and often. And a lot of tools to develop capabilities all the way through the irrigator. Those are the guys at the front line. So here's my call to action to all of you from one small perspective in the Pajaro Valley. First, acknowledge water resource planning already completed at the local level and position state support for those locally driven solutions. A lot of work has been done already to find those solutions that are the biggest bang for the buck. And a lot of that focus is on conservation. Empower and support communities to look more holistically at water issues and efforts so that we can try to have one conversation. It's crazy out there. Yeah. There are so many different avenues of work going on, and a lot of times the left and the right hand don't talk. So one of the roles that we've found we can play is help coordinate those conversations so that one doesn't get in the way of the other. Focus on long-term resiliency, not just short-term reaction. Enough said. Provide assistance and investment in technology, capital projects, and on-farm technical assistance. All those go hand in hand in hand. Build partnerships from local state level to act as a trusted conduit and spread models of progress. What I mean by this is we're just a little community, a very important one, but a little community. There's a lot going on at the state level. If you can garner deep knowledge about what's going on in all these communities and raise that up into awareness at the state level, that helps advocate on our behalf, and also allows us to be part of the bigger discussions. And then conversely, you can bring that state level discussion down to the local level so that it can drive and influence our decisions on the ground. And then you can also take a model like ours and spread it to other communities, which we don't have the power to do. The last one is direct funding to local efforts and services. Again, both large scale and on farm, there is no one silver bullet. We need to amplify what already exists through funding and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really, I've been hearing about all these things for a while, and it's terrific to see it pulled together in one place. And I know we'll be having a lot of conversations, not just today, but ongoing. So thank you all for your presentations and excellent suggestions. I'm going to turn to the panelists for questions first. I have a couple of my own, but they may get asked. I'll start on the right, if anyone has a question. And then for the web listeners, re-say who you are.
This is Diana Brooks. I just wanted to clarify a couple things that Claire said. As of the end of January, we had 55 water agencies submit their agricultural water management plans, and that represented a 53% compliance rate. So I just wanted to correct that. And also, I wanted to note that while grants may be awarded, they're not the grant award is not executed until the agricultural water management plan is submitted. So.
Carlos Suarez, NRCS. Just actually a couple of comments, and both Tim and Claire mentioned about the delivery systems. And we're working with Bureau of Reclamation on the Water Smart project, where actually that's the intent, is to provide funding or grants opportunities to irrigation districts and water districts for that very same reason, improve the delivery system. And then NRCS will work with those farmers that have received, that are participating within those water districts that receive grants to improve their irrigation systems, whether go into a drip irrigation system, irrigation water management, and so forth. We definitely recognize that, and one of the things that this year It started in 2011, but this year, because of the drought and the needs, we actually, Bureau of Reclamation have put more funding into it and accelerated the process to give those grants. But the other comment I wanted to make was Claire mentioned something that goes very deep to our hearts, and that is this drought is, we don't think it's, this is not a one-time deal. We have to prepare 3, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And actually, it was at the Outlook, California Outlook Forum last week. They were talking about Australia and the drought that they endured and how they adapted and they became resilient to address that. We have the same capability here in our own soil to do the same thing, but we have to work in coordination not only with farmers, ranchers, but all the partners involved to do that and change the paradigm. You mentioned conservation practices. That's something that we have been doing for years. But I have to say, we meaning NRCS, and I take responsibility for that and representation of the agency, we need to promote more of those practices. And we're doing that with soil health initiatives and so forth. But at the state level, one of the things that our drought initiative is doing is that very same thing, focusing on conservation rather than the big, hardware systems and so forth. And for Kelly, I mean, we have working with Driscoll for many years, and I certainly support her efforts and the efforts in Pajaro. And the key point that she made about the working in coordination at the local level, we need to continue doing that. Thanks.
Well, that's great. It's great to hear from the panelists on these things and the dialogue that I'm seeing, the discussion. Kelly, and thanks for all the excellent points that have been made. Just getting to one issue, you pointed out in Pajaro as an example, a lot of the farmlands aren't necessarily owned by the farmers. And yet, and then, so one thing that comes to mind is you put up the projects you're working on. You've been doing it for a few years. It's getting up and running kind of thing. It was the managed aquifer recharge. And when you look at a map like that, you think, okay, who owns the land above the areas that are most suitable for recharge, and are you working with them? But really, the people that were doing the actions that would affect the ability to recharge aren't necessarily the owners of the land. So how far along would you say you are in that? And has the collaborative forum empowered you to reach out to these folks who seem to be a couple steps removed maybe from the day-to-day work?
No, that's a great question. It's been fun because Dr. Andy Fisher at UCSC has studied the aquifer for over a decade, and he's created this potential recharge map, which I'm sure he would say will never be done. But what he has done is now come into the community water dialogue, and he has a playground to test everything that he's studied and created. And we've made sure that landowners are at the forefront of this. In fact, it was the landowners that created the impetus for the community water dialogue, because they're a critical component. And many of them are what you might call absentee landowners. They're from out of the area. So keeping them connected to the work that we're doing is absolutely critical. And understanding, making it clear and explaining to all the stakeholders involved, we all have something to lose if this fails, right? So that partnership, particularly landowner-grower, has been very important.
That's great. And then real quickly, one thing, you covered so much in your talk, and I know we could talk for a long time, that, and the other presenters talked a little bit more maybe than you did about outcome. That is, what network, like Tim's network of monitoring that they've set up that's in danger of not being funded because of revenue limitations during drought conditions. Right. And then, tying that all together, that the landowners, the accountability ultimately is based on outcome and monitoring. Those actions, sure, the map's great.
Right.
What do the groundwater levels look like? And how far along have you come with that?
Well, so that's where the PVWMA really comes in, and keeping an eye on, on the aquifer. They do their studies regularly, but that's been a very tough part, trying to monitor and manage that, because a lot of the wells are shared and the crops rotate. And so for Driscoll's internally, what we've done is we've actually invested in technology to flow meters to monitor water use and help our growers in that regard. But that's significant cost and infrastructure. Now, we've been able to partner with PVWMA on that, which has been very, very helpful. But not all entities have the ability to do that, and so that's where some actual support could be very important.
Right. Thanks. Fran, any-
Two questions that I probably will be asking others as well. One, several of you have mentioned responsibility and taking that basically local responsibility is extremely important, which I absolutely agree with. However, when you have someone locally who's not being responsible, are there sufficient local authorities to bring, to politely or less so, bring people into line? Do you think you need more authorities at the local level to deal with those problems? Because that's often where we come in, or where the regional board might come in. But if the locals can do it, great. But do you have the authorities? And I'm looking to.
Well, I'll take a shot at that, and then the other panelists can chime in. As like everything, it depends. The Yolo County Flood Control District is created by the state legislature. We do have authorities for pump monitoring, charges, things of that nature, groundwater well. So we have the local authority, but the money, the revenue to implement that, the political will to sell it to the local landowners, the local water users, is something that may or may not be there. But there's also another aspect of it, so we as a district, and every district has a different charter, a different set of bylaws that they operate under, so I can't speak to all of them. But there's also, as the board is well aware, a change in permanent cropping status. There's land use changes going on, and we don't have authority on land use. I'm not sure we want it, for that matter, but there needs to be a discussion, and I think your groundwater framework concept paper really highlighted this. There needs to be more discussion about the authorities that regional agencies have and don't have, as well as what ones are needed. And I know that's a continuing dialogue with the state board and their staff. But so it's a mixed bag, I guess, is to answer your question.
Thank you very much. That's helpful. And I suspect that can be spread all over the state. Second question is, you mentioned not having the revenues for when you're not selling water. Clearly, conservation rate changes could help, not so much to eliminate that problem, but certainly to make it not quite so dire. However, there's a 218 issue, I suspect, that you would have to go through, which is costly and difficult. And so my question is, if you were to pursue conservation rates, what are the kinds of things that will need to be in place for you to be successful?
Political will, number one, and you have to make your case, as always. We do have the Yolo County Flood Control has a pretty sophisticated rate structure that encourages conjunctive use. What's missing, and it shows up dramatically in a year like this, where our rate structure is based on, if we have more water in storage, we lower the rate, and if we have on April 1st, and if on April 1st we have less water in storage, we have a tiered water system, rate system. That we were able to do without an election, but with a 218 notice. What we really need to do, and many districts have this already in place, everybody has a little different rate structure, is a land-based charge, either based on water, many districts call it water availability. You still have to spray weeds or control weeds along the canal bank, whether there's a drought or not a drought. There's maintenance of all sorts that goes on, kind of a baseline fee, if you will, for water availability, is it's often referred to. We also, in our case, the district board is engaged in charging me with coming up with what sort of rate structures we can do besides land-based is a recharge-based. I mentioned the 25% recharge that we do. We don't, and again, every district is unique in their setting and their circumstances, but we don't have groundwater wells. We don't. That's all privately owned and operated. So basically people are receiving a benefit that they're not paying for. And, you know, and it's, our groundwater monitoring program highlights this. It's part of a long-term process, planning to develop the data, the information, and be able to make the case that why people should contribute to a zone of benefit election, a 218 election, and support it. So there's 218 hurdles, but I think if you have a good case, you have good data, and you have the trust and the credibility in the community, these things can be overcome. And that's what a lot of the foundational action work that I've mentioned in previous settings comes in.
Right.
If I could just echo what Tim said, when we talked to districts last summer for our report, a couple of them had already gone through that 218 process to adjust their rates after SBS 77 asked them to do that. And exactly what Tim said, the ones that had been successful were able to engage with their community, make their case. I mean, this is an extreme year, so I'm sure no one's doing great this year, but some of them were expecting to be able to close some pretty persistent revenue gaps that they had. And so I think exactly what you said, engaging the community, making your strong case, and explaining what the benefit of a rate structure like that would be certainly helps.
Not to be repetitive, but the environment has to be right for progress. And in order for it to be right for progress, there has to be that collective buy-in, that feeling that people are being heard and that their voice is being integrated into the solution. So I think it's the answer to both of your questions, actually, that in those areas where agencies might not feel like they have the authority or can move things forward, my guess is the environment may not be right for progress, and trust is absolutely critical. Trust in bringing value for the money that you're charging. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
So, question for Tim on the issue with funding challenges for IRWM and groundwater management or groundwater monitoring. Are you aware of any districts that are actually pulling out these programs entirely? Or you're illustrating an issue where it's a challenge to meet the requirements, the financial requirements?
Excuse me. I don't know of any specifically. I think we're all a little bit in denial, waiting for the March miracle to happen and save our budget situation. But I really wanted to highlight it because it's a program. You know, it's not a pipeline. It's not a water treatment facility. You know, it's the sort of thing. But it's so critical to establishing the trust and the credibility in the community to drive programs forward that I really wanted to highlight it today as something that shouldn't be forgotten. As you know, prior to the governor's drought package is prioritizing the criteria developed for spending the money.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know if ours are, you know, we've got partners in our regional, if ours will be, our groundwater monitoring program will be taken off the shelf. I know we can't fund it, the district, and we're the major contributor. It's a regional effort with cities and other districts in Yolo County. So maybe other people are in less dire shape than we are, and so they'll contribute. But again, I wanted to highlight it for the board as something that's at risk.
Great. And then are you aware of any other programs that we should be looking at other than IRWM and groundwater monitoring? Is there maybe a more comprehensive list?
Well, we've provided DWR a list of shovel-ready projects, ones that have had CEQA done, and for instance, groundwater well production, you know, which makes sense in some places. Our groundwater basin's in relatively good shape, and it makes